You ever heard an album that really just pissed you off because you wanted more years with it than what you have because it's so good? Hey folks, Dustin from Music the Lifeblood here. Welcome to Vinyl Thursday. So, let's talk about the Wraith. This is their sophomore appearance on Vinyl Thursday. If you get an opportunity, go check out the episode I did on their 2019 album, I think, Bloom Ballet. It's absolutely incredible. I love it, still in heavy rotation as far as what I'm listening to. Now, the Wraith were visited with tragedy. Their singer, Davy Bales, passed away, and they've begun the process of soldiering on, going forward. Now, speaking candidly, I interviewed Davy right around the time Bloom Ballet came out, not too long after, I believe. And I look at him kind of the same way I do Jim Morrison. I think he was the real deal as far as poets go. I think he was the genuine article. And I think the world was a better place for having him in it. So if you get an opportunity, go check out Bloom Ballet. It's absolutely stellar. And there's some other singles from Davy's time in the band as well. I think they did Warhead as well. But that's a really, really great cover. But here, we're going to talk about their new album, Ghost March.
Somewhere between light and darkness, is there no truth or justice? No!
One of the things that I most appreciate about the Wraith's first album, Bloom Ballet, is that it felt and still feels complete. It is entirely realized in the sense that you didn't get a half-baked sort of effort. I always think of Metallica and Kill 'Em All in that regard. I think the thing that's always bothered me about Kill 'Em All is that one of the principal songwriters of that entire album is not on the actual album. When you A/B Kill 'Em All to No Life to Leather, you can tell the difference because Dave's lead playing in that regard was absolutely crucial to the development of the Metallica sound. Now, that said, whatever. When it comes to sophomore slumps, it's absolutely a trope within the annals, the history of music. There's a reason that the term was coined, because sometimes bands can sort of apathetically shit out an effort, that just, it doesn't hit the bullseye. It is what it is. And it happens for a reason. You have all that time, your entire life leading up to writing your first album, and then you put it out, put all this effort into it. It's amazing. It's great. And then you go, oh shit, we got to do it again. And I don't get this from the Wraith. This album, Ghost March, is advanced compositionally. Definitely so. Now, we'll talk about the production a little bit later because I absolutely think it adds to it. But the principal, main, absolutely most important thing to this entire album is the strength of the songwriting. album sits snugly in that swirling cloud of The Cure meets Fields of Nephilim, a little bit of Sisters of Mercy, a little bit of the Damned Phantasmagoria era. It's right in the pocket in that regard. But the neat thing about the Wraith is whether you're listening to Gloom Ballet or this album, Ghost March, there's a punk rock thread that's woven through the entire album. And I think it creates access points that you may not get with unfamiliar ears hearing a lot of the death rock and overt goth stuff. Singer Harley Mace has settled into the musical landscape of the Wraith very well, astonishingly well, in my opinion. He sits within that Andrew Eldritch sort of range. He's a baritone, obviously. You know, when I think of Andrew, you know, I hear him bow down. You know, that deep sort of rumble that Andrew has. But the thing about Harley is that I think his voice is more refined than what Andrew's is. Yes, I just said that. I did. It is what it is. I think Harley's voice is mature. And there's this thing that happens with singers. Now, it's whether they're using their head, throat, chest, full voice from a technical standpoint, it doesn't matter. You can tell Harley is moving a lot of air vocally. And that means his voice comes out as robust. There's a lot of body to it, a lot of presence to it. And I think when you put Harley's voice within the production, the mix of this album, and it's dense, it's absolutely a dense mix, but it's not overcrowded to the point you can't, you know, penetrate through it. Harley's voice fills the mix. And I think it's amazing on account of it's complementary to Kaz's riff writing. Kaz, as a guitarist, the dude is as nuanced as you can get within the goth and death rock genre. And I think they hit the bullseye with Harley coming in on this album. The dude just fucking kills it front to back. And speaking of Kaz, I think he's outdone himself on this album. Now, I've dug into a lot of the stuff Kaz has played on, whether it's the Wraith or whatever else he's done. He's done a lot of stuff. He's got a good resume. I think these are some of the best riffs that Kaz has ever wrote. And yes, I'm saying ever. This is going to be a pillar within Kaz's body of work. This album is phenomenal. I know I keep going back to that, but it's almost overwhelming in a sense. When it comes to Kaz, I look at him kind of the same way that I do Jade from AFI. Jade plays in a way that he's not always just chugging along or strumming along to a really basic, simple riff. But you can hum what would be the core of the actual riff without actually humming the riff itself. I hope that makes sense. And that's essentially that the root note comes through a lot of the time, but Kaz is not just riding on the root note exclusively. It gives his playing this sort of deceptive simplicity simultaneously with sophistication. It's almost something doesn't need to be complex to be profound, but at the same time, things can still be simple and profoundly complex. I know it's cerebral, whatever, but Kaz is playing. It just kind of worms its way in from a melody standpoint. It's just all of a sudden there. And like I said, he's not always going to resort back to just chugging along Johnny Ramone style to a root note or anything like that. I think in his body of work, this shows absolutely that Kaz, as a guitar player, as a songwriter too, is just an absolute titan when it comes to studio work and compositional work. The dude is, good Lord, he's good. Now, I didn't spend a lot of time talking about the rhythm section on the Gloom Ballet episode I did, but I want to talk about Paul Rogers. But not that Paul Rogers. That Paul Rogers. They have the same name. It's funny. Anyway, Paul is a great player. And I think for a lot of different reasons, but I think foremost of them is that guy clearly has some musical wisdom. Now, he's a busy player. It's part of the punk rock thing. You know, punk rock early on, especially in the UK stuff, there were times that when you look at a band like The Damned, whether it was Captain Sensible playing bass or whoever came after, what was his name, Aggie? Well, I'm blanking on the damn bass player, but they've had a couple guys, I think. But anyway, Paul's a busy player. It is what it is. But like I said, it's not ego driven. He never feels like he's just trying to show off. I think it has more to do with how can I best complement the song? What can I do to make this song better? Like I said, that's musical wisdom. You have to have that in a creative entity like the Wraith. And, you know, I've never seen Paul's record collection. I don't know if I ever will, but I'd be willing to guarantee that that dude is a fan of Simon from The Cure. Simon's one of those guys that he's made this amazing career out of making Robert Smith's songs better. Just better, period. He's an enhancement player. And I think in the case of the Wraith, Paul is that to this band. Just having him in the studio, just having him in the band, it makes the entire collective project and result better. He's the kind of guy that you want on your team because just by virtue of him being there, it raises things a whole nother level. drummer Anatoly, which I am told goes by Tolik, is a massive Russian bear of a man, which checks out because he's a fucking beast of a drummer. So that's fun.
As the last light falls, as the last light falls, our silhouette, the evening draws, is our final curtain call. As the last light falls, fall with me, fall with me, fall with me.
As far as standout tracks, the first one, Sanctuary. Now, this one is dynamic as all get out. I always like hearing a tom drum intro that doesn't come thundering in. I like it when there's a little bit of subtlety. There's a build-up quality to the drumming in this song. Kaz has, I detect the slightest of phase on his guitar in there. I could be wrong. Maybe it's chorus. I don't know. But to me, it sounds a little bit like phase. And then Harley, as far as the lyrics go, he hit it out of the park. The song just, it's a banger. No other way to say it. Side 2 opens up with No Tomorrow, and it's a great way to open up side 2, which, by the way, just me being, an uber fan of music, that sort of thing. This album is sequenced really, really well. There's a few songs where you could probably trade them and it wouldn't have, much of a really negative impact. There's potential for a different opener, a different closer, but overall, someone put some effort into sequencing this thing. And I think No Tomorrow opening up the second side is definitely indicative of that. Emotive. The lyrics have emotional weight that's sort of bolstered by the string arrangement in this song. It's just, everything came together in the right sort of compelling way. End of Time could have just as easily and effectively opened the album. This song is as heavy as the Wraith gets, and I put a lot of that on Tolik's drumming. There's a propulsion to the way that he plays. He has a thunderous quality, but again, it doesn't get in the way. That's why I think the combination of him and Paul are just an absolutely badass rhythm section. And another thing, too, is that one of the things that the Wraith is really, really good at is gang vocals. Now, they don't do it all the time, but when it does pop up, it's got a lot of weight behind it. It gives it sort of a jolt a shock to the system, and that you kind of find yourself suddenly going, you're getting pumped up about it. This song, it's one of my favorites on the album. It's killer.
Leave behind the lights. The city's burned, no wrong, no right. Our final night. First night, tonight. Too late to decide. Think this world will last goodbye. Modern demise. If we die, we die. As the empire falls. At the end of the world. Voices on war. At the end of the world. When the dream has died. It's the end of. It's the end.
The album ends with Sea of Trees. Now, I don't even know if this is an overt criticism. I think it's more just wishful thinking on my part. Maybe a suggestion, I guess. But I feel like this song should have been a hidden track. The album should have ended with End of Time. And then a couple revolutions of the album go by. And then all of a sudden, boom, you get a song that's not listed on the jacket. I think there's a secretive quality to this song. It's hard to describe. I think it conjured up the Cure Fascination Street. And there's a song by SSQ called Tonight that it was a song they had on the Return of the Living Dead soundtrack. Which I think I did a Vinyl Thursday on a long time ago. Might redo it at some point. But those two songs popped into my head. Now, it's not a direct sort of musical tether. It's more about vibe with the Cure and SSQ. It just has this sort of drifting, sort of swirling fogginess to the song. And it just feels like it should be a hidden track. I think it would enhance, the listening experience of the album. Now, I'm glad they put it on the album. It's a phenomenal song, but it's almost like you kind of want to keep it to yourself. Like, I'm going to listen to this, but no one else is going to know. One of those sort of things, which hidden tracks are always really neat in my opinion. But I did a little bit of digging, and I sent Kaz, their guitar player, an email saying, hey, can you tell me about, a little bit about the album, the making of it, who's doing what, songwriting, blah, 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 all that stuff. And apparently the impetus to this song was Kaz and Paul working on, they had an idea that come up. And apparently it's about the suicide forest in Japan, which is terrifying in that regard. But at the same time, too, there's this melancholy sort of thing that kind of wafts through the song between the chording and Harley's vocals, coming in and out, and just some of the production work. I think I hear some V drums, maybe some programming happening. I think that's what sprung SSQ to mind when I was listening to it. But what a cool way to end an album, in my opinion. But like I said, it's one of those songs where you want to be able to just kind of talk about it with your friends, because not everyone made it to that far to the end of the album and they didn't hear it yet. And so you're the one saying, oh God, did you know there's a hidden track? I feel like it should be one of those. But that aside, yeah, what an awesome way to end the album. Sort of a different kind of vibe than everything else. And if I was a betting man, I'd put a little bit of money on that. I bet they'll go in this direction a little more on the next effort. That's me taking a guess. And it's also me saying I would absolutely not mind that happening, because the vibe of this album, they really, really knocked it out of the park, ending it this way. Sea of Trees, it's a badass song. It's cool.
We're slowly running out. Don't stray from the path. Spirit with no sound. These rivers to the lost. Beneath the sea of trees.
before we open up my copy, let's check out a few things as far as the different versions and what got released for this one. So the first thing I want to check out is the Wraith Bandcamp. So heads up, when it comes to Vinyl Thursday, I'd say a pretty significant portion of the albums that I end up talking about on Vinyl Thursday, a lot of the time it comes from Bandcamp. What I love about Bandcamp is that they're an aggregator for a lot of different genres of music, and there's not a lot of middleman kind of crap that you have to deal with. Sure, there's labels on Bandcamp, and the bands are on the labels, obviously. But generally, when you go to a band's album, there's a pretty fair chance that that's directly connected to the band, or at least a lot of the bands that I listen to. And then on top of that, too, I like the idea of there being a channel of music discovery that not only combines the physical media, a download, and then a streaming option as well. To me, that's just super valuable, especially from a download standpoint, because I like to back up, anything I buy on Bandcamp, I'm going to download it, put it on my computer just to make sure that I have, an MP3 copy that if I want to put it on my phone, because you don't always stream music. For me, I like having, kind of the foundation of all the music that I'm into on my phone, just in case, what if the Wi-Fi goes out and, I'm lifting weights, or who knows, whatever. I just want to be able to have the option to be able to listen to all the music that I have stored in my library as far as what's on my computer. Now, that said, the Bandcamp, that's my go-to. I'm not a Spotify guy. I'm just not into Spotify. I don't always like how Spotify does business. When it comes to, the cutting the artists in on the profit, that sort of thing. I think, I guess, I don't know. I suppose it's an ethical dilemma I have, I guess. But I like Bandcamp. Bandcamp is absolutely my go-to place. So anyway, the Wraith, they're on Bandcamp. There you go. But also, heads up too, there's a metal band, I believe they're on Prosthetic. I think they're on Prosthetic Records, but it's a band called Wraith. Not the Wraith, but Wraith. So just heads up, when you're searching for the Wraith, a lot of the time, I think on their Instagram, I think their Instagram handle is like the Wraith Los Angeles, I believe. So if you get the two mixed up, whatever, try the ad in Los Angeles on there. You'll be able to spot them a little bit quicker. But anyway, I bought the album from Bandcamp directly, and which we're going to open it up here in a minute. But looks like somebody in the band actually boxed it up, which is cool. I like the idea of being able to have contact with the actual band themselves. That's really part of, for me, when it comes to a lot of the bands I like. One of the things that commonly comes up with all those bands is that they're accessible. You can get to these guys. If you have a question, if hey, do you have any more of those whatever left over from the last tour that you did? Any chance I could get a hold of one, that sort of thing. The accessibility plays a major, major role in at least my ability to really enjoy a band. And it's nice. If you told 15, 16-year-old Dustin, you're going to have an opportunity to interact with a shit ton of the bands that you love, I went, no, that's stupid. That's never going to happen. No, I think that's one of the great things about the internet. There's a lot of bad things about the internet, obviously, but one of the things that I appreciate the most is that it's just opened up a lot of channels to be able to interact with the artists that you like, whether it's, somebody doing illustrations like Carl Dahmer, or a band like the Wraith, or, just random creators, whether it's on YouTube doing stuff like I'm doing, or just who knows. It's one of the greatest things about the internet. For me, I think, aside from checking what temperature meat should be cooked at, I think I use the internet the most for music. That's generally what I'm doing, with the internet. And, it's cool. I'm a younger generation Xer. I was born in 1979, and I can literally remember the day that I discovered what the internet was. It's a funny story. My friend Dustin came to class with these terrible like dot matrix, black and white printed, pictures of, I think it was Marilyn Manson and somebody in the band sitting on Santa Claus's lap, I believe. And I asked Justin, I was like, where the hell did you get those? Magazine or something? And Justin just point blank, he looked at me and said, I found them on the www. And I went, what is that? A magazine? A zine? What are you talking about? And then we're off running from there. It's one of the things you'll never forget. If you're a Generation Xer, you always remember, well, how'd you discover the internet? It was one of those things. So I love Bandcamp. I love the access that Bandcamp has afforded me as far as the bands go. I love that the majority of the money that I'm spending, I know will go to that band. And on top of that, the 3 avenues, you get a download, you get a physical, and then you get a streaming. That makes a huge difference for somebody that's into collecting records. So anyway, go check out the Wraith's Bandcamp. There's lots of good stuff on there. There's a ton of really, really great merch, a lot of shirts, like random stuff like turntable, felt mats. There's a shit ton of different stuff. It's ridiculous. CDs, 7 inches, 12 inches. It's got all kinds of stuff. They've got, as it relates to death rock and punk rock, they've definitely got the merch game down. They're heavy hitters in that regard. Okay, so next thing. This is an advert. This came from the Bandcamp, but I think these showed up on the Instagram as well. But right there it is. There's a nice little high resolution image of the album cover and the black vinyl, which is super cool. All this kind of, the yellow from a design illustration, stamp marketing, I guess, if you want to call it that. From that standpoint, the Wraith visually really know how to knock it out of the park. That's just a fucking awesome looking advert. And then there was a CD version of it. I like that they printed the cover onto the actual CD itself, it's cool when artists go that route. I don't buy a lot of CDs anymore. Once in a while I'll pick up some stuff, but I haven't consistently bought CDs probably damn near, probably for the last 10 years. It's been a while. I'll grab stuff every now and then if it's something I really want, or maybe it's something hard to find, or I know I'll never be able to get vinyl. It could be just stupid expensive, one of those kind of things, or rare, whatever it is. But yeah, there is a CD version of it if you want to go that route. Remember too, CDs are really great from a storage standpoint because they're a hell of a lot smaller than what vinyl is. So, if you're staying in a little place, you ain't got a lot of room, maybe CDs are the best way to take it if you absolutely have to have physical media. But still cool. And then this really, really interested me. So there's an alternate cover to Ghost March. And they only did 50 of these, which, that's frustrating for me because I have to get my hands on one of them. So I'm thinking about, chasing it down with the band, maybe see if they got any left. But God, I really, really want one of those. The cover's cool, scary tarantula on it, or a skull tarantula, whatever, spider, whatever the deal is. My wife has tarantulas, so I don't know what the difference between a tarantula and a spider is, even if there is a difference, but I think there is. But anyway, that appears to be some sort of an arachnid. West Coast Tour Edition. Ghost March West Coast Tour Edition covers, hand screen printed, only 50 available and only available for purchase on the tour. Check out the link in the bio, which, oh man, that's badass. I'm wondering what the back cover looks like, if it's the same as the regular cover. I'd be curious about it, but man, oh man, I want to get my hands on one of those. Yeah, I'd be half tempted to just buy another copy of the album just so I can have another piece of vinyl to stick in it, maybe display them. One of the things I do with my record collection occasionally is all on the top of the shelves. If I have room, right now my vinyl shelves are covered in Masters of the Universe figures as far as the top of them goes. But if I ever put that stuff away, what I like to do is pull out actual albums, put them on like a little stand. And, it's just nice to be able to walk into a room, every day and see a different album. Whether it's artwork you enjoy or if it's just an album that you really like and the artwork totally sucks, but still, it's cool to walk in and see that. It's part of enjoying collected music. So this is a magazine. Cramps, good old Lux, good old Ivy. But anyway, this magazine did a review of the Wraith's new album. So if you're into printed media, this might be something to go check out. Which, there's a quick shot of the actual review itself. They got a 9 out of 10, and I 100% understand why. So definitely something worth checking out. If you can't get a hold of the magazine, maybe it's sold out, which I think it was. It was listed as sold out when I went and looked at the website. Still, it'd be cool to go to the Wraith's Instagram and you can actually read a little bit of the blurb of it, which is, it's cool to see printed media still out there floating around. It's cool. It's part of the legacy of, whether it's punk rock or goth, death rock or post-punk or whatever the hell, whatever genre that you're in. Printed media it's an important art form. It's got that transcendent quality where it can do a lot of things all at once. Whether it's interviewing bands, album reviews, talking about the subculture that surrounds the different genres of music. Printed media is still very, very important. Just the other day, I had a copy of the No Values fanzine. I think it's the number 1, but it came out at the festival a while back, and they had a little bit of a piece on the Misfits inside of it, and it's fucking dense. There's a lot of stuff in there. Older interviews, talking about new records, talking about old records, that sort of thing. So I've been trying to make time to actually sit down and look at it. But who knows? Maybe it'll turn up on an episode of Vinyl Thursday at some point. But printed media is important. It plays a linchpin role in the history of aggressive music, goth, all the kind of stuff that I talk about here on Vinyl Thursday. It's sort of a legacy element to the art of collecting music, which it's awesome. I love it. But anyway, if you get an opportunity, maybe go to the Wraith's Instagram and check out all the different stuff that they posted on there. A lot of flyers too. If you're into flyer artwork, it's definitely worth it to go check out all the stuff they have on there. That sort of quality, that vibe, the atmosphere, that sort of thing. The Wraith really gets that stuff. They got it down. They really do. They visually, they knock it out of the park every time. All right, we're going to open it up. First up is the mailer. Now, I've already opened it. I was chomping at the bit to get this thing out and start listening to it and get it on the turntable, that sort of thing. So, I already opened it. But this was the mailer. It came in. Nice, thick, rigid mailer. It's got lips on the inside to make sure that nothing's going to be sliding around, that sort of thing. And the other thing worth mentioning, too, is that whoever mailed this decided to put a little bit of extra effort to put a fragile sticker on it, back and front, which, granted, parcel services, whether it's the U.S. Postal Service or FedEx or UPS or whoever, sometimes shit doesn't get handled with care. It is what it is. But a good mailer and at least a little bit of extra effort to say, hey, be careful with this damn thing goes a long way, in my opinion. And the other thing, too, was you may not be able to see it really well on camera, but the edges have been taped as well. So to get these wings to fold in, put a nice big long piece of tape on there, and it's just a little bit of extra effort on the other side too, and then another bead of tape across the crease on the back. So food for thought, but it's a good mailer. It's rigid. It's got some thickness to it. My album arrived safe and sound, which is amazing to see because every little bit counts, especially when, I got my copy from Bandcamp, which probably means that it's coming directly from the band. Now, the guitar player, Kaz, his name was on the label, which makes me feel even better because, obviously Kaz treats the band like it's his baby. It's like his own appendage. He's going to make sure that he's going to be held in a good light as far as someone that's doing commerce from one person to the other. And from a audiophile standpoint, a collector standpoint, that's, for me, that gives me good peace of mind. I like the idea that I'm doing business directly with a band. That is a good thing, in my opinion. Now, I'm a younger generation Xer. I was born in 1979. And so I lived through the 90s when, the end result of the DIY 80s, from bands like Minor Threat, The Misfits, Bad Brains, the Adolescents, all those bands that were sort of doing it, Black Flag, definitely throw Black Flag in there too, but all of those bands that were doing it themselves, the echo of that has lasted all the way into, the post-millennial period of independent music. And I think those values that got instilled in a lot of young punk rockers and indie people during that time has continued to echo through what is independent music now. And, the entire music industry has changed so drastically over the course of the last, 50, 60 years. We introduced the internet, and that sort of reshapes the entire music industry landscape. Bands, they're on equal footing from an exposure standpoint. It's not just bands relying on MTV, up in Canada. I think they had, I don't know, what was it? The music station up in Canada. I'm blanking on it, but, or the box, stuff like that, VH1, that sort of thing. That's not the only game in town now. And when you encounter a band, number one, that may not be quote unquote mainstream on satellite radio or even terrestrial FM radio now, which gross in my opinion. I don't want anything to do with it. But when you're doing business with bands on this kind of level, there's really something to be said with knowing that you're interacting with people and doing business with people that understand that they need to have a good reputation from a running their business standpoint. And it's just stuff like this, the picking of a good mailer that goes a hell of a long way. That sort of sweetens the pot, so to speak, of being a fan of a band. To me, that it's unparalleled in its importance, especially from like an audiophile standpoint. I listen to a lot of obscure bands, yes. I also listen to a lot of, ginormous bands like Kiss and, Black Sabbath, stuff like that. But what I so adore about the independent music experience is the same thing that I loved about it when I was a teenager in the 90s. It's that you can get to the band. You can get access to them that you may not experience in other avenues of popular music. It's just, like I said, it sweetens the pot. It makes the entire experience better. That might be me just fanboying out. It is what it is, but there's a real value to that. The entire experience of knowing that the band that you're into, they're not dicks. You know what I mean? If I have a question, I can send Kaz an email. Or if I need some pressing numbers, from a band on Prosthetic Records or Relapse or whatever the case is, chances are I can send an email and say, hey, can somebody help me on some details of this sort of thing? That access is part of the reason beyond, the MP3 revolution and, what happened with the internet in the early aughts and how music is streamed now, that sort of thing. That's the other part of the equation that I think a lot of people don't always get to experience when it comes to only listening to, for lack of a better term, mainstream exposure bands. Because what does mainstream mean anymore? You know what I mean? But we're talking like the megalodon bands that you're never going to run into on the street. I would much, much rather have the experience of interacting with a band on, for lack of a better term, a street level, like a band like the Wraith, that they're accessible. And that accessibility is part of the reason why independent music or underground music or harder to find music, it is so alive and virile, I guess would be a good way to put it. It's the notion that, in a way, my interaction with them can make me more of a part of the music listening and enjoying experience. So I don't want to make it cerebral or more complicated than it needs to be, but that's part of the reason why I appreciate a band going a little bit of extra distance to make sure that their product is going to get to you safe and sound. So whatever, I could go on for hours. All right, so bam, here it is. So the nice thing is that it came in a sleeve, which is awesome. I don't like shrink wrap. If I had to choose between getting an album from a band that's been shrink wrapped or just in a regular old sleeve like this, I'd much rather go this route. Now, that said, everybody knows I keep my hype stickers. I keep them displayed with the albums. That's something I consider part of the entire package. So, it's kind of a bummer you don't get a hype sticker, but at the same time too, this is ready to go on the shelf. The bad thing about shrink wrap is that sometimes it can be too tight and it can bow in the corners of the actual cover of the album and potentially, reduce the actual quality of it being mint or near mint or whatever the case is. And on top of that too, there's a lot of bands that have enough of business intelligence, I guess, I don't know what else to call it, to choose a sleeve that'll be good for the collector, the person listening to it. And it might seem like a small thing, but the sleeve they chose is resealable. It's got this sticky strip across here that allows you to open and close it a little easy, keep the, the dander and the dust. If you got, animals in the house, dog hair, that sort of thing. It just keeps it off of the actual cover and the actual LP itself. So that's another thing to kind of go along with whoever took the time to put, a fragile sticker on the box. So it's just one more thing that tells you that you're dealing with a band that cares about, the transaction of buying their music. So it's just neat to me, but all right, let's get this thing out. So this thing, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm not going to weigh it, but it feels like it's probably 110 grams. It's not double press, but there's some weight to it. It's not some, I always mention, I have that copy of Kiss's best of the solo albums from '78. I think it's got the altered 2 S's. It's not the like the lightning bolt S's of the regular Kiss logo. I think it's got the, for lack of a better term, the censored ones, so they don't look like. Germany doesn't like part of the Kiss logo for a reason, because it looks like something, that was really bad during World War II. So, but anyway, occasionally you'll get really flimsy LPs in that regard. And I don't know what the grammage is, how much it weighs, whatever the case is, but this definitely feels like it's probably 110, which good. It's cool. But what a freaking killer cover. It's that high contrast black and white punk rock thing. And lately, I've had an appreciation developing for Old English script. I just think it's cool. It's neat looking. But killer cover. And there's the back. Sorry guys, try to avoid the glare. They got the Wraith seal up there. And I didn't think to, just now noticed it since I've opened this, I didn't notice that they had a barcode on it, which I was kind of surprised by. Which that gives them an opportunity to get into record stores that way. So you put a barcode on something, it makes it easier for record stores to be able to sell your stuff and inventory it, that sort of thing. So LA Dark Records, and then Seeing Red, which doing big things. Cool. All right, so we got an insert, and then inner sleeve. Let's check out the insert first. Again, sorry about the glare, guys. See if I can hold this the right way. Lyrics. And we got a good picture of the band up there in the corner. Trying to get you the close up. Looks like Paul's got his lapels up. He's looking cool. One of the things I've been noticing about watching the videos from this album is Harley's eyebrows are fucking on point. I think it's a goth thing, right? You know, putting that little bit of extra effort into your face, you know, which I think is cool. Kaz back there peeking around the color, peeking around the corner there. Yeah, cool picture of the band. It's awesome. All right, so as far as some credits and some thanks, and just kind of details on the album. The Wraith is Harley Mace, vocals, keys, Kaz Alvis, guitar, vocals, synth, programming, Paul Rogers, bass, vocals, Jose V, guitar, vocals, Anatoly Tolik, playing the drums. All music by Kaz Alvis and the Wraith, all lyrics by Harley Mace, End of Time lyrics by Harley and Paul, Sea of Trees lyrics by Harley, Kaz, and Paul, additional vocals by, let me make sure I'm saying this right, I think it's Aaliyah Faye, I believe, which I don't, but I have to go back and double check, but I don't think that's the same singer they used for some background vocals on Gloom Ballet. Man, what was her name? I'll put it up on the screen. I'm blanking on it. But yeah, you can definitely hear it in the album's opener, Requiem of the Damned. There's a little kind of a break, you know, like a change up that they do in the song that those come in. It's really, really neat. Recorded at Captain's Quarters Studio in Ventura, California, engineered by Armand John Anthony, produced by The Wraith, mixed and mastered by Jamie Gomez, Arellano, not sure about that. Requiem of the Dam, Overthrown in Sea of Trees, mixed by Tim Boland, cover art and designed by Kaz, band photos by Hannah Pete, which they always have really good photos. That's something I was looking at their Instagram the other day, and they just, whoever's doing photography for them, they always have really great photos. And then on top of that too, they have that striking quality in a live setting. They're a band that's neat to look at, I guess would be the best way to put it. I think I first started noticing that when I was young. One of the first real major exposures to punk rock I had was Henry Rollins, his Get in the Van book about his time in Black Flag. And a lot of the photos in that book, you know, a lot of them are black and white, or I think all of them in Get in the Van are black and white. Some of them, I think Glennie Friedman shot some of them. There's some other photographers, that sort of thing. But Black Flag was, to me, always really neat to look at. And part of it had to do with the shit that they were playing on looked like the same shit that I was playing on when I was in bands when I was young. Like, you know, I remember seeing Greg Ginn's clear guitar I'm blanking on the guitar company, but he had it taped up sometimes not. But I just remember how fucking beat to shit that thing looked. And then on top of that, Robo's drums. Robo's drums they looked like they had seen better days. And, I've told this story on Vinyl Thursday before, how I discovered the Misfits. And it was from that Get in the Van book by Henry Rollins. There's a picture of him in there, which I'll put it up on here so you can see it. But that's the picture that pulled me into the world of Glenn Danzig, the Misfits, Sam Hain, Danzig, all that other stuff. That is ground zero. That photo is ground zero for me as far as my love for Glenn Danzig's body of work. And it was the thing, that bookmark in my head, that bands that are cool to look at usually end up being bands that are cool to listen to. That's a sort of teenager rationale, but it's carried over into the rest of my life, that I like it when bands photograph really well. And the Wraith is one of those bands. They just look good from a photography standpoint. But yeah, cool insert. I'm glad they put the lyrics on here too. Not that, Harley's diction and his pronunciation is great. He never feels like he's mumbling. He's not, his enunciation is really, really good. So everything he's singing comes through loud and clear, even when, he's kind of mushing syllables together, or vowel sounds, what they call them, diphthongs. When you take a single vowel and you might change the pronunciation of it a little bit, from the beginning of it to the end of it. It's like going from I, where you just sort of change the vowel sound in the middle of it. But, God, Harley's, from a vocal standpoint, like I think I said it in one of the segments, he's just a fucking titan of a singer. He's killer. Just absolutely killer. Killed it on this. And he's got a really interesting body of work as well. I did a little bit of digging into him, and he's a good bass player too, aside from being a singer. And my understanding is that the dude plays piano really, really well as well. And, kind of one of those well-rounded guys. And I think the production of this album, it enhances all of the, I suppose, the meaning and the compelling nature of all its individual pieces. That this is a near perfect album. And I'm saying near perfect because it is damn near fucking impossible to make a perfect album. There are so few of them, and they happen so rarely, that it's, I'd easily give this a 90, a 99%. And the only reason I'm not saying 100 is because I think I'm only going to hit that 100 maybe once in my lifetime. And I haven't found a perfect record yet. And I think that's it sort of illustrates the need to keep digging, as far as an audio file goes. I remember Jake and I talked about it once on the Music of the Lifeblood podcast, and Jake said something to the effect of, you really dig. And I think the word excavate came up as far as the way that I travel through music and the ongoing search that I'm involved in when it comes from a musical standpoint. And I feel like excavation is the best word for it, because you're digging into things that you may not have known were there. You're discovering things you had no idea existed. And then at the same time too, new things are always flying at you at the same time, that there is a damn near endless supply of music to be discovered out there. And I think in that sense, with that much music, the fact that anyone can get near perfect it's almost transcendent in its nature, that it's so fucking deep. There's a deepness, there's a heaviness, there's a transcendent quality to the way that I love music. It takes me to a place. And, sometimes I think the only time I'm going to be able to discover what the perfect album is once I've heard all the music there is to hear. And then I can make a decision on what the perfect album is. So in that sense, I hope I never hear the perfect album, because at that point I wouldn't have as much to dig for, So it's a big thing. It's a deeply personal thing, for music lovers in that regard. So I've been thinking about that with the Wraith the last couple of weeks as I've been preparing for this episode. I'll scribble notes and, might put things, write a note here about, find out about this, find out about that. And I'll have to go back and look into it. And, I got to watch the video again, all kinds of stuff. So the thing that I enjoy the most is that it's a never ending search. And in my lifetime, up until the point I die, I hope that I keep looking for more music. That is me. That is what I want out of my life. The ability to just keep digging for music. And when you have an album like this, God damn it, it makes the thrill of the hunt absolutely incredible. And in that sense, I hope I never discover the perfect album. Because if I did, I don't know that I don't want to stop the dig. That's it. That's the gist of it. If I find the perfect album, then the job is done. And I don't want the job to be over. So that's why I say this is a near perfect album. Realistically, this is one of the best albums I've heard easily in the last 20 years. Hands down, full stop, no contest. This is as good to me as what Mastodon's Crack the Sky is. Or, Misfits' Earth AD, Wolf's Blood. That's my absolute favorite release by the Misfits. Or, when I think about all the albums, I like Offspring, their Smash album. I love that album. I absolutely adore it. Or Iron Maiden, Brave New World. It's a fucking amazing album. Judas Priest, their Firepower album. Screaming for Vengeance. I love Angel of Retribution. That's my absolute favorite Judas Priest album. And I would absolutely put this album in the mix with those. Like, they just fucking knocked it out of the park with this album. Just, wears you out because it's so good. You feel winded. But all right. Anyway, let's look at the actual LP itself. Here, put the cover over here. Look at those two necks together. Vibe. All right, so black sleeve, which is cool. I talk about this sometimes with the Hell's Headbangers stuff, that a lot of the Hell's Headbangers releases, is always black. That inner sleeve, which I think is cool because it makes it feel more metal. And in this sense, it makes it feel more death rock, I guess. It enhances the experience. But the other thing too is that it's plastic. It's got a layer in here to help reduce the static, which is super cool. So there is side one. Sorry about the reflection. I'll get you guys a good close-up of the label, but cool looking label. It's another version of the cover of the album. 33 RPM, LA Dark Records, Seeing Red. Oh, hey, LA Dark, so 01 LP. So is this the first release? Is that? Ooh, is this the band's label? I'm going to have to look into it. We'll find out. That's exciting. Something to dig into. Yeah, good looking. That side 2 label is awesome. chaotic, punk rock, death rock. Badass. Super badass. Alright, let's take one last look at the insert. This is thick too, by the way, guys. So there's some thickness to it. Which, another thing, if it's heavier stock paper, it's going to hold up over time. And white on the back. If I ever get to see them live, I would love to. I don't know if I'm going to have much of a reason to go out to LA anytime soon, but hopefully, maybe they'll make it through Indiana at some point. It's awesome. There's the cover again. That's awesome. Love it. I thought the sort of juxtaposition here of, chaos, I'm assuming that's spray paint, maybe? Street tags? Something, and this looks like it could be maybe a mausoleum, a hallway, maybe a church. I'm unsure, but, it kind of leads me to believe it could be like a graveyard or some sort of statue in a church. But, the juxtaposition of the refined and the chaotic is, it's neat. It's kind of one of their things, one of their artistic motifs. I still love the seal. Thing is amazing. Yeah. Damn, what a good album. I'm so glad I got it. So freaking glad I got it. You guys get that. Fun thing about Vinyl Thursday is that, when I record these episodes, I'm by myself in the room, unless, my dog's in here with me. It's just me, but, the longer I do Music the Lifeblood, and one of the things I cherish the most about, everything we've done with Music the Lifeblood is at its core, it's music lovers talking to other music lovers, where it's, whether it's me and Carter and Derek on Conversations from the Pit or the old podcast episodes with me and Big Jake, it's still at its core, as much as we joke around and, I go off on weird, socio-political rants and whatever is annoying me at the time, we still always revert back to, the commonality of the love of music. It's sort of the great equalizer in the sense that, you could get people in a room, get 50 people in a room that could vote, one way completely different than the other, or do different jobs, or, lead completely different lives, that sort of thing. But if they're all in a room with a band they all like, guess what happens? It's being on the floor of a punk rock show in a record store. For me, it was Stevie Ray's House of Wax in Muncie on Ball State campus for the longest time. You got 25, 30 people stuffed into a tiny record store, and the Teen Idols are playing a show, or the Lillingtons are playing a show in front of you. Or all the bands that I ever watched in Stevie Ray's House of Wax. Everybody there, you always sort of came together as one, as it relates to being able to enjoy the music. And albums like this absolutely remind me of that. It's like the journey down musical memory lane. This album has made me feel giddy. It's given me it's given me sort of a renewed sense of why I love doing Music the Lifeblood. So, that first episode back was, Danzig's Satan's Child album, which I knew the first episode I wanted to do back was an album that I was just deeply, intimately familiar with. And because it would kind of help me get back into the rhythm, you know, makes it get back on the bike, you know, start riding, that sort of thing. But I knew the second episode was absolutely going to be this album. And it had to be this album because it created this charge, you know, internally for me. Like, I want to talk about this album because I think it, not only is it just a killer, badass album, but in the short time, you know, I've been with this album, you know, we're not talking multiple years, you know, but it was just one of those times in my life where, you know, you were reminded of why something is so deeply important to you. And yeah. So if I could give the guys in a band a hug for making this album, I would do it, you know, because it's just phenomenal. And what a way to kind of feel reinvigorated would be a good way to put it. So, man, you guys knocked it out of the park. All right, folks, that is it for this episode of Vinyl Thursday. What do you think of the Wraith? Have you listened to Ghost March yet? Have you checked out all the videos that they've released so far for this album? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget, there's all the other Music the Lifeblood content, Conversations from the Pit. That's the other video series that we do. And then obviously old episodes of the Music the Lifeblood podcast. It's on Spotify and Soundcloud, a bunch of other places, whatever, wherever you do your podcasts at. You'll probably be able to find it on there. All right. That is it. See you next time.